Yay! Okay, we are live. We are live. I'm so sorry for the delay. Gotta love technology, right? I tell you guys all the time how I am not a tech person. And guess what? I'm still winning at life. It's okay. So you don't have to be perfect and you can still win. But today I have a really special honor. I get to do the Winner Circle Winners Highlight, which means that we get to highlight one of our members. And today it's not just a member, even though every member is equal and a wonderful circle. This is actually one of our health coaches. So I'm going to tell you a little bit here about the Winner Circle so you know what that is about. And while I'm doing that, let me know down in the comments where you're from, tell me who you are, and let's get to know each other a little bit. My name's Renee Vidor. I'm the founder of the Winner's Circle, also an author, coach, and speaker. And I'd love to know a little bit about you. Also share this because today we have an extra special guest and there's going to be a lot of neat things that you get to learn from her. So today we get to learn more about Michelle Waugh Brinkley. And I'm going to share a little bit about her and share her bio. But I'm also going to tell you why she's even here. Why are we interviewing her? See, the Winner Circle was created as a space for people to come to be able to be who they're created to be, do what they're designed to do so that they can win at life and make their impact in the world. You might be saying, well, what is this space? Well, it's a community where people can come together and they get personal and professional growth, coaching in different elements as far as our health, our mindsets, which we all need some extra help with, right? And also our faith. And we get to grow all of this together so that we can win at life. And when people are coming together in community, what happens? We have support, we have encouragement, and accountability. And if you're someone who's looking for something like that, then I'd love for you to check out bealifewinner.com and you can learn more there. But without further ado, I'm actually going to read this because I don't like messing up people's bios. So, Michelle Waugh Brinkley is a mental health and movement advocate and registered Christian Yoga Association therapist. She's passionate to see lives restored by the power of the Holy Spirit through meditation, body awareness, and intentional movement. She has Christ-centered group classes, small group workshops, specialized programs even for one-on-one clients. That way people are able to embrace their given identity through movement, worship, and breath, regardless of their skill level. Hear that, that's important. Their abilities or their age. Michelle is also a bold disciple and has a mentorship program called Alongside Her. And that's an opportunity for for her to walk with individuals seeking to deepen their faith, for classically trained yoga instructors looking to weave the word, and to serve as a tutor for instructors working through their education programs. And lastly, but not least, she is a lead volunteer with an equestrian discipleship program. She's the proud mother of 2 teen children, a nurse's wife, and a do-it-yourselfer. In her spare time, she enjoys sewing, being outside, and reading. So let's welcome up and help me welcome up Michelle. Hey,
Hello.
thanks so much for joining today. I know we had like that rough, rocky start. Sorry about that. So I'm glad that we're here together.
No worries. It's always an adventure when you get computers involved.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I won't even dog on Mac users. Oh, wait, I just did. Oh, no. Okay. It's all good. I have a lot of fun running jokes with some people like that. So one day I'll be a Mac user too, I'm sure. But all right, Michelle. Well, thank you again for being here and also for just being a winner yourself. As I've gotten to know you a little bit, I know we met, hasn't been that long ago. It's been within the last year, this year actually. And just getting to know you, I'm like, wow, this is like one of the authentic people that I love to be around. And so I just want to open up for you a little bit here. If you want to share a little bit more about yourself or anything that I missed in your bio or anything like that.
Not really. I guess I am, or I would consider myself a salty disciple. I have no issue dropping truth bombs on people. I do my best to use the lens of love to deliver it. But sometimes even tough love is hard to receive. So I definitely am an individual that wants to promote all people moving towards the truth of Christ, but living towards their own truth as well. and not under any sort of facade that they have decided to create. So
that's a big deal. And that takes a strong person. And knowing you from the little bits I do, I mean, that's who you're created to be, and living that out. Love it. So jumping in a little bit, and I know, of course I know, but tell me a little bit about why you joined the Winner Circle, and anything that you want to about that, what your favorite part has been, that sort of thing.
okay. So I actually joined the Winner's Circle as a result of an answer to prayer. I had been praying for, I'm not even sure, maybe 6 months to a year about this idea of how do I overcome what I felt was one of my final barriers for myself that I had created, which is comparison. Instagram is an amazing platform, but it's also amazingly, you get really drawn into some of the stuff that you see, and you're like, I wish I could do that, or I wish I could do that, or why can't I be more like that? And I had gotten myself into a place where I was really kind of caught up in that. And so I had been praying, how do I get out of this comparison loop and live my more authentic self and just bring it out more into the world? How do I find more connections to offer these things out there? You had actually found me through a Christian networking group through Facebook. And it was through that we were able actually to begin this kind of partnership. And I joined the Winner Circle, and I've learned some amazing things about the way that comparison was in my driver's seat, and I didn't realize that it was. And so it has helped me to truly embrace some of the saltiness that the world has tried to dull away. And so I've really enjoyed the different, not only coaching opportunities that I've got to help with the group, but those that have been offered and things that I have been able to learn as a result as well.
That's awesome. And I didn't even know all that. So thank you for sharing. That's so cool. And I love how God even puts things together. What was neat about, I was actively looking for some other coaches that were in the health arena that would be of the same mindset, that had the winning mindset. And there are many of you out there, I know. And if you're watching this and you're in the health arena, love you and would love to learn more about you too. And I was looking specifically, all of a sudden this thought came. It was like a God thing of, go to this specific group and just type in this keyword. And I did. And I was like, there was one person, and it was Michelle. And I was like, oh my gosh, as I read about her, I'm like, okay, this gal is a winner. Like, I can tell already. So I'm so glad that we both have been just open to the Holy Spirit and open to hearing and learning. So it's so cool.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
As I know, like, about you, I think of you as kind of like the yoga guru. I think of you as, but in a way that is even different than I've ever seen yoga before. And so tell me a little bit, and I don't know, but how did you start your practice? Like, how did you start with that?
So I just want to say Jesus is my guru, but I appreciate that compliment. Let's see, I started my yoga practice back when my children were very little. I ended up in this place where so many of us do. You're a young mom, you may have I had 2 children under, like 2 and under, and it was a lot. I had come to a place where I was a great mother, a great wife, but I had lost track of who Michelle intrinsically was. I had gotten wrapped up in sort of all the stuff that was kind of going on around me that I was contributing to, but I wasn't necessarily feeding myself anymore. So for a Christmas gift, my sisters, so I have 3 sisters, they actually gifted me with a beginner yoga package and a pass to a local yoga studio. And the card said, go find Michelle. So even my family had recognized the fact that I had lost track of my intrinsic self. So I started going to this a classical yoga studio, and I was practicing 1 to 2 times a week. I actually wrote on my waiver, where it says, what do you want to learn? I said, I wanted to learn who Michelle was again. I wanted to connect to myself. And so through that practice, not only did I learn to reconnect to myself, I kind of used it as an opportunity to overcome like residual disordered eating habits. But I was also able to, for the first time, hear the voice of God. So it was actually in a traditional yoga practice that God spoke to me and said, go teach. And I hit a form that's called child's pose, and I stayed there and I was crying and I was like, no way, what was that? Like, that was weird. And why are you asking me to come to the front of the room? I was always a student that was interested in coming in, like with 2 minutes before we start, unroll my mat in the back corner, then leave as quickly as possible, right? Don't look at me, I'm just here for the fitness part of it. And God had something else in mind entirely. He started to really feed me spiritually after that. And he told me to go and teach. I talked to the instructor and I said, well, I think God's calling me to teach. And she's like, well, nobody else has stepped forward interested in a teacher training, so I don't have any on the books. I came home, I prayed about it. And the next time I came to class, which was a whole week later, she said, what have you done? There have been 7 other people that have come forward in the last week. I have a full class now. So I knew then that it was a God thing, and this was the sector I was to be stepping into. So that is how not only I started my practice, but how I started on this path of teaching others as well.
That's so neat. And I didn't realize how much you're teaching others. So how long have you been doing that?
So I got my first teacher certification. I finished that 9-month program in January of 2012. So I've been teaching almost 10 years.
Wow. And I'm going to put in the comments, you are in Pickerington, Ohio. Is that correct?
My home base is in Reynoldsburg.
Reynoldsburg.
But I consider myself a traveling yoga instructor. So I like to move around and go to different local area church campuses to sort of demystify yoga for Christians and to allow them to understand that God came to this earth in bodily form, and he wants us to redeem our bodies and use our bodies as vessels, not to worship our bodies, but to use ourselves in a way that helps to truly be his hands and his feet. So upcoming class, like places where I'm teaching, is I have a class coming up in Utica. I have a class, it's technically Columbus, but it's just outside of the 270 loop, like by Reynoldsburg, Columbus area. And then I have a class out in Etna as well. So.
Wow. And you also, are you still doing some Zoom classes, or you do some one-on-one Zoom
Yes.
as well?
Yeah. So my, I have an evening class on Tuesdays that is broadcast out of Reynoldsburg. And then the Wednesday evening class is broadcast. That's the one that's technically a Columbus address. Then I also only will Zoom my Saturday morning power yoga right now, just because that is a fragrant offering. And so some of us aren't necessarily ready to be that hot together yet in a closed space.
That's so cool. And again, using technology that doesn't even always work right. But at the same time, being able to keep winning and impacting more people. And I just put in the comments Michelle's website, so you can go there. We also have it up here. I believe it should be right in front of us at mwbyoga.com. So you can learn more about her classes and more of what she teaches. I went on there and I was floored by the neat offerings that she has, even in informational form. And I'm like, wow, this lady knows so much. She knows so much. And we've done in the Winner Circle, you've done a couple for us already that have just been amazing. But one was for all of us sitting in a office chair that happens quite a bit, how we can even use our chairs to be able to do some practical health for our bodies and our minds, and the deep breathing and our breath, and using it in such a way that is going to help us. And I've been using that. So thank you for all that you've already instilled into me.
Good.
So with that, talking about the breath and the different things that you do. So how do you create, I guess, like when I think about it, like there's different thoughts on yoga. And I know that that you could teach a whole nother topic. We're not going into that, but just even like, how do you create a safe space for people to be able to have alignment with their movement, their worship, and their breath with Christ?
So, so one of the things is that I boldly proclaim that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made vessels, and that in that we are to be houses for the Holy Spirit so that we can be his hands and his feet, right? I already said that. But Jesus wants us to love him with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, and with all of our strength. That's Mark 12:30. And the idea is that we are loving him with everything that we've got. The reason that we do that is because we receive his love and then we offer that out, right? So that we love ourselves and love our neighbors, because love is transformational. So all of the classes that I teach are through that lens, through this lens of love. How do I love myself from the inside out? How do I love others? How do I project love from me out into others? So that includes our bodies, that includes our breath. These are all gifts that we have been given. So all of the classes that I teach are taught through a specific lens for me of decreasing anxiety and overcoming trauma. Those are areas that I've been able to find a lot of relief and success with the yoga experience. So I teach through that lens, decreasing anxiety and overcoming trauma. I'm a shared experience instructor, so that means that I stay on my mat most of the time. I practice with you. I don't want my students to be in a place where they don't know where I am in the room for live classes. I don't want them to ever feel like I'm going to sneak up onto their mat or lay hands on them and they don't know about that. And I don't want anyone to come in and be confused about the process or get disoriented throughout the process. So those are all key elements to me. Permission is a big thing. If I am going to touch for assist purposes to help realign your body in a more safe way, I always want to ask permission first. And I can even give, through Zoom, I can give verbal cues to help realign the body and bring you into a safer alignment, right? There's no such thing as a perfect form, right? Because we're all created unique, but there are safer ways of moving so that we're not putting too much pressure, say, on our knee joints, causing damage, or adding tension into our shoulders, right? So if we get into a place where we're doing this, right, you are just adding a lot of tension into your shoulders. Shoulders are not earrings. Soften your shoulders down, right? Create some space. So as we experience movement, worship, and breath practices on the mat, we're able to create more awareness around our breath and how we are actually moving our bodies in space. So this speaks to that proprioception. Where are you in space? And another reason why I stay on my mat, so you can experience your own sacred 2x6 foot space, and I'm not interrupting that. And I also use breath as a lead for our motion. We do not have life unless we have breath. So our goal is to allow our breath to lead our movement, right? Let's see here. So I try to decrease the likelihood of injury. And so my goal overall is to help you to let go and let God so that you can experience a healthy body with energy flowing freely through you without these stagnant pockets of aches and pains all over the place, so that you actually can start to, experience a variety of wholeness on this side of heaven.
And I'm sure nobody watching has ever experienced these aches or pains, right? Yeah. In fact, tell me, have you, anyone watching, have you done yoga before? And I know Stella had said that she was thanking you for sharing your story. I'm not sure if you can see the comments. I want to make sure you knew that. So thank you. And yeah, so what are some of the things of our viewers that you're aching? Like, what are those things that perhaps you could start to use your breath and you could start to use what Michelle's sharing with us to help decrease anxiety? I know that's a huge thing right now, especially with so many of us going through the last 18 months.
Yeah.
That's been a lot. I know for all of us. And even when we know the things, we can know all the things,
right?
We need help. We need people that are there to keep us accountable and to remind us. And one thing I really liked, and I was typing some things in the comments here so that we can capture, but I really like how you talked about the verbal cues, because so often if we don't have verbal cues, whether it's for our bodies, whether it's for our minds, for our spiritual life, for our faith, we need those verbal cues, then we're going to keep failing. We're going to lose. We're going to keep going the wrong direction, or we're going to stay
Mhm.
in that position that's making our aches and pains, or that mental
Mhm.
mindset that's going to keep us
Right.
from growth. So, like when you talked about verbal cues, I went back to a space where you were doing one of the yoga poses and teaching us in the winner circle. And I remember specifically where you shared one of those safe, helpful verbal cues where I was like, ooh, I didn't realize that I was holding tension there. And when she said to breathe this way and gave me those verbal cues, it was unlocking something in my brain, which then unlocked something in my body.
Right.
So what you're saying is just like so spot on, so good.
I also want to make sure to say that even if the yoga mat is not a place where you feel comfortable or confident, you can still tap into the great power of your breath and whatever style of movement you choose to do. So even if you choose to walk, if walking is where you find your peace, remember that your breath is there with you. And that if you deepen your breath and become aware of it, then you're cultivating that mindfulness and starting that whole cascade of calm and anti-anxiety too.
Oh, that's such a good
Yeah.
point. And Stella shared that she's trying to work through her different prauma experiences, and she
Mhm.
prays to God that she'll be able to heal and feel the love around her. So, is there anything in specific that you would say, and what you just shared about even using breath and walking? Was there anything in
Mhm.
specific where a person might start? Like, what is something easy or quick that they could just even maybe start with when they just recognize, yeah, I need to work through some trauma?
Right. Um, so the first thing I generally recommend is you have to be willing to do the work. So your first
Mm,
step is the acknowledgement that it's going to be work. And that there are going to be tough and icky spots in there that you don't like, that are going to be really uncomfortable. Um, but when we come into those uncomfortable places, when we come into those valley transitional seasons of life, that is where God does his deepest healing work. So for me, step one is the acknowledgement that it's going to be work, that this is not going to be a cakewalk, and that you're really not going to like it some of the time. Step two is going to be to find somebody that can come alongside of you, whatever that means to you, whether that's a counselor or a therapist, whether that's a movement person, like, I'm a yoga therapist, maybe it's a life coach, maybe it's whatever kind of person that you feel drawn to bring alongside of you. Because oftentimes when we get into those transformational spaces, it can feel like we're the only one that's ever done this, and you can get kind of isolated. So having somebody come alongside you, maybe it's even somebody from like a Bible study group or a great friend or something that you're willing to actually intrinsically allow to journey with you. But yeah, so my step two is find somebody to go on this path with you. And then step three is do the work. So whatever that is, for me, like as a yoga therapist, it is finding those different areas of our body where we have stored um, the trauma in a somatic experience, right?
mm,
So we have our psyche, which is our mind, and we have our soma, which is our body. And we often store trauma in our body in very strange ways. So if you've suffered a lot of traumatic relationships, you might have a lot of tightness through your chest. And you're like, I don't really understand why, but it's because you're actually trying to physically guard your heart.
wow.
If you've suffered from, just for an example, like sexual trauma, you may suffer from lower back pain, but you don't really know why. And you're not finding relief in all of the different sectors. The idea of having to let go of that in order to find relief there. All sorts of different things. Like if somebody has told you, your ideas are bad, or that you are not good, or spoken very negatively over you psychologically for an extended period of time, you could have headaches, you could have migraines, you could have really weird stuff happen to your vision. So from a yoga therapist perspective, it's about noticing, well, what are your somatic responses and the places that your body has stored this trauma so that we can work through it that way. So that's the way I choose to work through that with individuals.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's so helpful. And I know Stella came back and shared that the more that she works around the trauma, the more she finds herself wanting to be isolated
Yeah.
from the people around her that keep reminding her of all the traumatic experiences.
Right.
And that's just, I mean, just so you know, Stella, like that's normal.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's something about running to isolation, but at the same time, I like what Michelle shared. It's not necessarily that you want to run to the people that remind you of the trauma,
Mm-hmm.
because that's, I mean, that's, you're not wanting to go relive it,
Mm-hmm.
but finding people, getting out of isolation is what I hear Michelle saying, so that you're
Yeah.
finding someone that's going to be helpful alongside it and not letting yourself become isolated. Is that what I hear you saying, Michelle?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you want to make sure that you're establishing safe boundaries for yourself. And if the individuals that you have chosen are triggering the trauma, they're not safe. That's not a safe person to come alongside of you on that healing path. So,
That's a really good point. Yeah, so much between the body, the mind, and the spirit are
yeah.
interlocked. And I mean, that's part of the reason why I knew when God was sharing with me to start something to empower people, that it had to involve all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, oh, well, I just go work out and then I'm healthy, or I just go to church and I'm good, or and then I just, like learn something every day or read a book every day and my mindset's better. But what you're sharing, Michelle, is so, it's missing in our culture. It's missing, is that we need to come together. And it's not that yoga is for every person or anything
Right.
like that, but the whole ideology that you're sharing is, and I hear what you're saying, is that, through Christ, like we can find what's going to help us. And so many people are being able to be set free through the gifts and the skills that he's given you to share with them.
Thank you.
And that kind of like takes us next to the next question I wanted to ask you. So I know that you have your own story. I don't even know your own story, but I know that you have pieces of your own story, because many times we are able to help others eventually when we get to a healthier point, because of the pain that we have in our past.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of those lessons that you've learned about anxiety from your own life? And then
Mm-hmm.
how do you use yoga as a tool for your journey?
Right. So they say for us to have maximum impact in our lives, we follow the trail of tears,
Hmm.
right? The places where we are just broken and poured out are the places that we then can pour out into others. So anxiety has been a thing for me. Often it's not, anxiety doesn't present itself as a symptom in and of it. Like it's not in and of itself a thing. It's often the result of something else, right? It's a symptom of something deeper. But I've learned over the years that anxiety is only a part of my life as much as I allow it to be. The practice of yoga has been helpful so that I can acknowledge both the physical sensations and the mental triggers of what anxiety and panic attack feel like for me. So that as soon as those things start to happen, I can be able to take control back over them instead of my body or mind taking control over me. So I'm actually able to the most part, prevent panic attacks or prevent a worsening of anxiety symptoms. I call it the anxiety tornado, where you get into this mental loop of trauma drama that doesn't actually exist, and it's just throwing shrapnel over everything that's good and true and right in your day. So for me, anxiety involves my whole body, and it stirs up my whole nervous system. And a lot of the time it takes my breath away. So through the practice of yoga, I'm able to remember the grounding aspects of it. Like I am allowed to be here. I have feet on the ground. I am allowed to take up space. The breathing, when I tap into some of the powerful calming breathing techniques, I'm able to bring my brain back online. Sometimes you get like this tunnel vision, right? Like your whole world shrinks down and you've got nothing but these what ifs floating at you. But when you take these full deep breathing techniques, you're able to reopen the lens through which you're able to see the world. So I don't allow it anymore to ruin my entire day. That's key. There are still times my anxiety can ruin an experience, but for the most part, it doesn't have to. And so that's part of the reason why I use the yoga techniques, or why I've gotten really attached to the yoga techniques. So in the grocery store at the beginning of COVID, when like there was all of this unknown and all this like it was like an anxiety inducing panic attack land in society, I actually went to the grocery store and I turned away from my grocery cart to pick, I think I was choosing jelly actually. And I turned to grab it, and this woman flies up from behind me and actually steals my grocery cart with my purse in it and starts pushing it at a high rate of speed down the aisle. And I threw my hands up, I held onto the jelly, right? And I said, "Stop, thief." And I ran like, I don't know where my incredible Hulk strength came from, but I ripped my car away from her, right? That's called adrenaline. And I said, "You're a thief. You stole my stuff." And she's like, "You are really overreacting." And I said, "No, I'm not." And I took my stuff and I pushed it like half an aisle up, and I stopped. And I put my arm through the loop of my purse again, and I planted my feet to the ground, and I started to go through the things that I practice. My feet are rooted on the ground. I am allowed to be here. I am allowed to be here. I am allowed to be here. I started to move my arms in space. I am allowed to take up space. I am allowed to be here. So I fully, in that moment, embraced my inner weirdo and did all of the things that I needed to do to bring my brain back on track. My hands, I call them baby bird hands. When I start to anxiety, they kind of do this weird flapping thing. I start tapping, right? Bring your brain back online. That takes an element of focus. And after a while, I would say it probably took maybe 3 minutes of me embracing my full-on inner weirdo in the grocery store. I was able to come back online, finish my grocery trip. And there was only one thing that I forgot on my list, but to my credit, it was not on the list. So it was something I was supposed to be remembering anyway. But that for me was one of these great illuminating experiences. I didn't like it at all. Right. But it reminded me that if this had happened to me 5 years ago, I would have had to grab my cart or my purse out of my cart and just abandon ship, go have a full-blown panic attack in my car until I could see straight, and then just go home and deal with all of the, we don't have food in the house, panic attack that was coming from my children that wanted to eat every 2 hours, right?
That's a huge win.
Right? So for me, like I was able to physically for myself see, hey, I actually got myself back online and I was able to do this. So yoga has helped me to really create enough space between the situations and my response. It's no longer always a reaction. I now get to have responses. So I'm able to have some more choice in that. And although going through all of these different somatic experiences, the waving of arms, the rooting through my feet, all of the things, the full deep breath exercises can be weird, right? I'm not saying it's not weird, but I would rather embrace all of that weird in the moment than embarrass myself in other ways, right? So that was a moment. When am I ever going to see these people in the grocery store ever again, right? So embrace it, go through the things that I needed to go through. And I was actually able to stay in my skin. I didn't have to feel like I needed to fully dissociate. And I was able to, move through it. So that was one of the ways where yoga techniques have really impacted me, specifically through this COVID season. Overall, the yoga practice has helped me to create more margin in my day, to realize that I don't have to always do, that it's important for me to just be. And in that creating margin, enjoying the moment. And the more that I'm able to enjoy the moment, each moment has a stronger impact, a more positive impact for me. Because, God did not create us to live in fear or with anxiety. He wants us to live rejoicing in his glory. So for me, this was all about getting comfortable living in the skin that I'm in. And now I'm going to, go out and try to teach as many people as possible. Yeah.
That is a huge impact. And even just like, I hope everyone listening is hearing that, that freedom that I'm hearing from you, Michelle, because that freedom, even to be able to embrace your inner weirdo and not caring about what everyone else is thinking, but being able to just know what is right now. What is it that I know? What is like in here that I need to pull out, utilize, and not care about anyone else and not give anyone else my energy?
Right.
Because I was just reading, I think it was yesterday, I don't remember where, but in scripture where God says that like he's given us every single resource we need in order to live in godliness. Like we don't have to obey our bodies when they want to have a panic attack.
Right.
Now, will we sometimes? Yes, I hear what you're saying. Like there are times where it's not like, I mean, none of us want to hear anyone saying like, oh, like if you're someone who suffers with anxiety, like that's a sin. Or, I mean, we're not going there at all. But at the same time, like there are resources, and the fact that you're sharing resources with others that you've went through, that's huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
We had a question
Sure.
that I'll go ahead and put up here.
Mm.
Jeff had asked, how does one who gets bored very easily get through a yoga session where it seems very slow versus something for him, which is rowing, that's a constant fast action? So
Oh.
yoga being slow, I will tell you the truth. I didn't always like yoga, like at all. I'm that super fast action person. So I'm really intrigued to hear what you have to say.
Okay, so oftentimes, especially for anxiety prone people, and I'm not saying, Jeff, that you are or are not, but for those of us that have anxiety, we get in that kind of loop that we have to continue to expend our energy. The problem with that is that it's actually fueling our adrenals to create more hormones that are causing more anxiety. Okay. So the idea is that we have to get comfortable being uncomfortable and start moving through the slower things of life. So how do you focus? For me, it began with the idea of focusing on my breath, because the breath is constant. The breath is rhythmic. It is something you can count on, right? Like rowing, like there is a process with that. Maybe you're not necessarily ready to get onto a yoga mat and you just begin your yoga practice in a rowing machine, right? So you are using your breath to go through those various moments. So the way it would work is your inhale, you'd be reaching forward, and your exhale is when you're bringing everything in and getting all of the power out. So maybe you actually start a yoga session on a rowing machine because you're using your breath. The idea of yoga is that we are uniting or creating union between body, mind, and spirit. So how can you move the body and the breath and keep the mind in tune with what you're doing? So I guess, why are you getting bored easily would be one question. Like, where does your mind go? What do you consider bored? What does that even mean to you? Is there something that you need, a personal affirmation or something that you need to filter into this? So boredom is one of those it's a very strange and sticky topic. But yeah, yoga is not for everyone. Jumping right onto the mat and being like, I'm going to love this. No, that doesn't happen for everyone. For some people, they start actually their yoga practice running. They're runners. And they begin with this idea of a rhythmic breath cycle, noticing what they notice around them and speaking affirmations. That's a yoga practice. It's noticing how you're moving in space, how you're breathing, and what you're thinking about. So I guess that's going to be kind of my short answer for that today.
That's really good though. I mean, that's really helpful, because even knowing that you can start a yoga practice wherever you are, wherever you're comfortable, that in of itself opens up our minds to be able to think differently and to be able to look at the different resources that God's given us. And as I was thinking about what you said about even, okay, where is our mind while we're doing that? Right. And I will open up this because I personally feel it's an important topic. And there may be people that watch this now or that watch a replay that perhaps were brought up in a Christian home that it was said that yoga is not safe, that yoga is something for a Christian or for a believer, that it is dangerous for your mind. And Michelle, you're welcome to put anything in here. I just want to at least share where I come from with that, is that I do believe that we need to protect our minds, that whatever we're putting in our minds and whatever we are emptying from our minds is super important. That as a believer, myself personally, I feel like, yes, the Lord, like Jesus is always in my mind. I'm not going to take him out and set him on the side so that I can, go do something else. Like he's there. And what I've really appreciated about how you have shared yoga is that you're not asking us to empty our minds. You're not asking us to take out our core values and our beliefs. You're actually replenishing and putting into our minds. You're speaking scripture throughout. You're actually helping to reprogram the minds through the same belief systems that I already have and that are already there. And then I can take that thought that you've shared and I'm able to like munch on it in a peaceful, relaxing, and very focused way. So for me, that takes away the boredom that I didn't have before, to be honest with you, because I would go on a yoga mat at a yoga class and I'd be told to empty your minds. And I'm there protecting my mind, thinking like, okay, I'm actually tensing up because I want to make sure, hey, Jesus, you're in control. You're here, you're
Right.
here. And that wasn't a full experience of what God has given us through yoga. So I'll let you take it if you want to take anything. If not, don't feel like you have to, but I at least wanted to share that.
Right. I believe that there is a verse that says, empty me of me so that I may be filled with you. So the idea is that we are not necessarily trying to become an empty vessel, but we are trying to empty ourselves from the ego, from the lens through which we view things, which is often corrupted by our sins and sins done to us, and instead be filled with the perspective and lens of Christ. So, even if you choose to go to a traditional yoga class and they're like, empty your mind, then you can just say, empty me of me so that I may be filled with you. Like there are opportunities for all of those places. But yes, we're definitely not going to open up a foothold for the enemy to come in and stir up some drama. Like that's not the goal. The goal is to come back into a state of homeostasis where we are aligning to truth.
Absolutely. And you did such a good job at that. And from everything that I've seen of you, you're taking everything that you're sharing and you're putting it into practice. Like you're not just saying the speak or putting it, like you actually embody it. And so, I mean, that's something that I really admire and I appreciate in you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And along that same vein, I do have accountability people. I do have Bible study people. I do make sure that I have others that continue to pour into me so that I'm not trying to teach from an empty vessel myself.
So important. Yeah. And that's what leaders do, right? That's what winners do. If you try to walk this life alone, it's not going to work. You're going to fall down, fail, it's just not going to work. It's going to be really ugly. So that's a really good point. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything in particular that you would like to share? I know that you have so much wisdom and you shared so much even here. I can't wait to go back and even just and go through all that. And I hope everyone listening that you're taking some notes and you're getting some mental notes and whatnot, and you'll go check her out. So go ahead, Michelle.
Kind of early on, you said that there was a friend watching that said she was kind of working through some trauma stuff and felt isolated. And I just wanted to speak to her for just a moment and let her know that in those moments when she's in the valley of transformation and life just feels heavy around her, maybe even suffocating, that could actually be, if we flip the script and lens that we're looking at it, the protection and comfort of Christ. You could actually be getting protected from something else. So even in those different seasons that we come into, can you flip the script? Is there something on the other side of that that can actually feed life into you?
And see what's feeding life. That's so good. I'm putting that in the comments too. That's so good. All right. Well, thank you again for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your time and for letting me interview you so that we can get to know you better. And I know that people can find you. You have a Facebook page, MWB Yoga is your Facebook.
Yes.
And then also you're on Instagram. Are you
I
still
am.
hanging out on Instagram? Okay.
I'm trying. Instagram. So in Instagram, it's MWB and there's an underscore and then yoga.
Awesome. And Stella said thank you. So yes, that was beautiful, beautiful advice and help there. And also your website. So again, that's at mwbyoga.com. If you want to learn more about Michelle and if you want to be able to just see what she offers. I was just, like I said, like, wow, there's so many cool things here. It's more than just this like traditional, like just yoga. Like there's just so
Right.
much. So thank you
Yes.
again.
You're
Super
welcome.
appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you in the circle soon.
I did want to drop just if anybody wants any additional anti anxiety tips, tricks, techniques, I do have my Yoga for Anxiety workshop scheduled.
Ooh.
It's coming up on Monday, September 27. And I think I listed that from 7 to 8:30 p.m. So that is a live Zoom workshop that I do. I do not record that in order to make sure it's a safe space so people can ask whatever questions they want. But
And they can find that. I'm typing in the commentary to make sure they can find that on your website under
absolutely.
classes. Okay.
Absolutely.
That was really good to add. I'm sure that is going to be really helpful. So, all right. Got that in there too. Well, thank you again.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you. Love you, lady. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Shalom.
Shalom. All right, everyone. Seriously, like, can you understand why I feel so honored and privileged? Why I feel like it's just such a blessing to be able to be among these people and among these winners and just yes, it just makes my heart so happy. So if you got something from this, then put down, let's see, put down Michelle in the comments because I would love for her to see how much we appreciate and all of that she's sharing and her wisdom. And if you are someone who is looking for a safe space as well, that you want to be able to win at life, you want to find out more about who you're created to be, discover more about what you're designed to do, and you want a safe community of people that are amazing, just like Michelle, then I offer for you to check out. Go to www.bealifewinner.com and you can learn more about the Winner Circle, what we do there. And we do have coaching, we have professional and personal development, as well as we have a health coach every single month. And that's really neat. And there's also an amazing community and accountability opportunity. So go ahead and check that out. Love to have you. And for now, wherever you are in your season, at least go out and learn more about being who you are created to be. Start doing what you're designed to do and start winning at life, making the impact that you were created to make in this world. Love you, friends. See you next month for the winners highlights.